My name's Dave Kuhlers. I live at Belmont, Iowa, and the Century Farm that's being presented in the newspaper belonged to my parents. Their parents originally bought the farm in 1900. My grandmother inherited it in 1964. My mother inherited it in 2005, and she recently passed away, and now her 6 kids, myself being one of them, is in the process of inheriting it. We're going through the estate process at the current time. Some of the memories that I have on the Century Farm growing up was, even when I was around 5 or 6 years old, being able to be over there with my grandparents during milking time, because they would milk all their cows by hand with the little one-legged stool, and it was just interesting to watch them do that. And of course the cats were in the barn, and they would always squirt milk at the cats once in a while too. And then after the milking was done, then we would go to the milk house, and my grandmother would separate the cream with the old-fashioned cream separator. And some of the other things that my grandmother did was she raised chickens, and she had her own out. And occasionally she would take one of the grandkids along on the egg route, and we'd check off the names as she was delivering the eggs. And then we would always get an ice cream cone after that.
Okay.
And one of the featured things in the story is about the giant rock that's out there by the road. And that was a rock that was buried, or it was part of the building site. It was just ahead of the corn crib. And when my mom was a child growing up on the Century Farm, she would ride her bike over that. And likewise, all of us kids, when we were over visiting Grandpa and Grandma, we would ride the bike over the rock too. And I wasn't, this was way before my time, but they did try to dig the rock out by hand. But after they got down a good 4 feet or so, they realized that the rock was just just enormous, and it was going to be impossible with the machinery that they had at that time to either pull it out of the ground, or because it was so close in proximity to the building site, they couldn't blast it, which is something they normally did with dynamite back in those days. And I can remember them blasting rocks on the farm that I grew up on, the farm that my dad farmed. Some of the other later memories I had was after I got my garden tiller, I would go over there and till the garden for my grandparents, and we would go over there and we'd plant a big garden over there. My grandparents would plant 100 pounds of seed potatoes every year, and the garden tiller I had a furrower on it, and so they didn't need to spade them in and dig the furrow with a spade. I could dig the furrow now with my garden tiller, which they thought that was pretty neat. And but then we still had to dig them by hand in the fall. But they enjoyed having the potatoes and the ground cherries. And my grandmother made the best ground cherry pie that anyone has ever made in the whole world. So